when you figure out what the whole system is doing, it's like I'm the cat that just ate the canary. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. It is, I mean, it's awesome because I don't have to come off as a victim. Not a victim, I'm just another experiment like everybody else. But there are sanctioned experiments and there are unsanctioned experiments. And so we don't know what everyone out there is privy to or what their background is, but obviously we know in our society, if you have a license, whatever license it is, your license gives you certain allowances to do certain things, okay? Which is why you're not supposed to give people remedies or offer them relief from symptoms or sell anything that is a type of cure without a license to dispense. Okay, so we have very specific rules in our society that for you to sell insurance, you have to have an insurance license. For you to drive a car, you have to drive a car with a license. If you are in the finance world, you have to have your securities license. If you are a medical doctor or even a behavioral modificationist / therapist, you have to have a license to practice medicine, to practice behavior modification. If you are a guardian or a parent, or if you have a child that is genetically related to you, then you have I don't say a license, but you have an allowance to raise that child. Anything that you dispense to your child as far as curing or behavior modification, well, that's a gray area that's left up for the parent and the system to figure out how to work with that situation. Where's the happy medium? How far can a parent go to control their child to then where, if that kid is really out of control, when does the system need to step in and modify the behaviors and or do something? And so, yeah, right now, child rearing is a gray area. It is a gray area. And obviously the government can't be in every single household, but there have been going on for years, human experimentation. And there are scientists out there, many scientists out there that do what they do. They were given license to do what they do. It's not always out there in the open. You hear about it. You hear about the conspiracy world, but they do what they do. And so given that I was raised by scientists and they were given licenses to do what they do, they knew what they were doing. Doesn't mean that the outcomes are always desirable. Doesn't mean the outcomes are always going to be in someone's benefit, but they have license to do what they do. If you don't have a license and you do certain things that cause irreparable harm, then yeah, the system can go after you for causing abuse. But when you have a license is where that's the gray area. And so that's why I'm not pissed off about anything in my world. And the fact that I'm coming out so openly and actually not really even afraid to come out the way I'm coming out is because I know that's what the protection is going to be. When people have licenses, they're allowed to do what they got to do without having to face that kind of backlash, like they did something that was against the law. No. Science, again, medicine, science, therapies, when you have a license, again, and you are sanctioned by a specific black budget or something, it's part of stuff. Okay? And so, yeah, there are people suffering out there. Some have been raised by scientists or people who were given allowances to do what they have to do. Maybe they were given allowances by meaning that their doctor, their behavior modificationist, their therapist said, okay, do this, do this, do this. They were under some kind of program, and that was part of the program. Again, is it obviously out there for the public consumption? No. It might come out way down the road. But people are already noticing and discovering that things were done and were given allowances to that the general population didn't know. So anyways, I'm coming on this morning because my husband's, that new assignment that he was on, well, that's going to end this week. And so he'll go back to his regular schedule. So some things aren't always like forever. So I'm going to go back to my morning schedule because I don't like working in the afternoon. It's like, ugh. And so what we've discovered is beauty and sex have been weaponized. They absolutely have been weaponized. I made some observations the last week or so with how many beautiful people there are in America, in the first world. And they are a dime a dozen. And of course, the filters and the plastic surgery and all the makeup and everything are reinforcing all that. But yeah, beauty and sex have been weaponized. And in the 80s, obviously, you see like the modeling industry, the supermodels, the like even Brooke Shields, and you saw her relationship with her mom and how her mom groomed her for acting, modeling, put her in positions of where people were like, whoa, was that appropriate? And that was the time back then. And you can even see with Brooke Shields' interviews about how she felt about being exploited like that. She was like, that was the time back then. That was a different time. There were so many things going on. You know, it was human experimentation and radicalizing beauty, radicalizing and capitalizing on the hormones of men and women. And so even those like the supermodels, like there's Nikki Taylor and Chrissy Taylor. Chrissy Taylor passed away. I think she wasn't the twin sister, but she was the younger sister of Nikki Taylor, which is a supermodel. And she died of some kind of AFib type of heart issue linked to like asthma. And so a lot of human experimentation where kids were born in 1970s, 1960s, the Generation X. Why they call it Generation X? Because we were under major human experimentation, okay? And popped out the modeling world, the acting world, the Disney programming, all of that. And so even I remember intense feelings as a child, like very intense feelings. And of course, that's not organic. That is programming. And am I mad or upset? Nope. It led to the J world. And I released the demons, finally grew up. And so, you know, you could see the pictures of me, you know, that I posted a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. You know, let me tell you, I was gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous in my 20s. I was gorgeous in my 20s, gorgeous in my 30s. The programming started to wear off probably in my late 30s, early 40s, and then I met my husband. And I still had some of the programming still left within me to grab a husband and figure out how to navigate the rest of my life after that programming starting to wear off, because the pmdd was kicking up like hella, like, oh my God. And so I know what was running me. I know today what was running me back when I was a kid, what was running me back in my teenhood, what was running me in my 20s and 30s, until I finally said, okay, I got to get away from California because it was going to kill me with either the religion fanatics who were trying to convert me, born again Christians, because that's who I met in college, was born again Christian, religious people, or the hippies. They were trying to sell me in cannabis, sell me everything under the sun. Hey, Johnny. And so to save myself, I had to leave California. To save myself, I had to leave California. But it was just like, but you don't really know what that is until you finally sit down. Like, you sit down, you relax for a minute, you figure out what is running you, what is going on. Because even I tried to take my California attitude here in Ohio and work at a company, and I know I'm a good salesman. Hey, what's up? And bring my salesmanship to, you know, a call center, and I was going to kick ass. But again, the demons that were running me were still rearing their ugly head. And so that's when I discovered the J world. Okay. And that's when I was going into the holistic world, trying to figure out what remedies, what concoctions to put together, what kind of diets. And then I got into the fear campaigns of food and the fear campaigns of everything that was offered in the holistic world. And you saw all the holistic people, the different gurus, the homeopathics, the naturopathics were like, oh, don't eat this, don't eat that, don't cook off of this, don't cook off of that. The water is tainted, the air is tainted, the food is tainted. And so then I fell into all that. But eventually the J world came around, and then adding the salt and the water more to my intake reflected back to me the demons that were still brewing inside. And I even discovered the original demon, what was running me. I discovered what it was. I didn't know what it was until now, actually today. And that demon left my body. It literally did leave my body. But I felt it as it was like a kind of a lump. And it's something that I can move around. It was like a fatty tumor that I can move around. And that was probably about a year ago. Just within the last year, last few months, I feel it again and nothing is there. But then the last couple weeks, I felt a growth coming up, and it was there. It didn't really hurt, but it was there, and then it disappeared. Like it was gone. Okay? And so that demon that ran me for so many fucking years, that was part of all the experimentation, and it's through a licensed professional, that demon is gone. I got my fucking life back. Like literally, I got my life back. And so the suffering right now, the suffering with humans at this point is that they've had demons develop from so many different things. I couldn't tell you your background because we have so many undetectable mind-controlled people that have demons developed in them or put in them by people that you have no idea, and maybe you don't remember. Okay? And that's the thing with undetectable mind control, is that things are done to people as babies. So they have no memory of that stuff until, and then there's that reinforcement, that positive negative reinforcement as you get older and you start remembering things. But then that's just like any kid out there. Okay, mom and dad put the hammer down. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. A little bit more aggressive punishment to reinforce the programming, but you don't know where the programming originated from. That's the thing. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, Johnny. But you don't know where that program originated from, and so you don't know what runs you. Then there's always these blame games. There's the scapegoats. Oh, it was this person. Oh, it was that person. Oh, it was maybe the medicine that was given to you. Or maybe it was your background. You had a crazy background. Of course, me being from the Vietnam War, that was an easy scapegoat. Oh, it was the fact that, you're a war baby. You have all these issues. And so it's not difficult to hide real actual programming behind events that it's anybody's guess how babies end up and how they act out. And so if you blame it on the war, then there is no way that you can, that's a reason. It's a blame game, just like blaming things on the V's. There's other things that came into play that cause people to have adverse reactions to anything. But when you give people something to blame, then you hide the true origination of the programming, and it's left undetectable until someone faces their demons and figures out, pieces together everything, and then finally realizes what the hell's going on. And so anyways, I wrote, I remember intense feelings as a child, very intense, and that is not organic, that is programmed. Am I mad or upset? Nope. It led to the J world, and I released the demons, finally grew up. Laugh out loud. You can see the programming in the pictures of me in the 90s. I was gorgeous. That was the programming. And then the programming eventually wore off. I am not ugly, but I'm also not selling you sex and love either. I'm not selling intelligence, or I'm selling intelligence and longevity and hard work. And so I discovered a way to counteract the programming of weaponizing beauty, sex, and love by converting it to life and longevity and facing the demons. And life does not have to be ugly and miserable or under the influence. And so I said, thanks, Mom. Because I know it was a programming that my mother, she's licensed. She did behavior modification, whatever it turned out to be. It's not a crime because she's licensed. She knew what she was doing. Okay. And so that's the catch-22, because you're like, well, you didn't have a choice. And isn't that against the law? Not really. Because look, there's parents out there that do so much stuff out there to their kids, force them to go into religion, force them to take part in medical studies, force them to get a V or not get a V, force them to do so much stuff, and they never had a choice. But that's the parenting, right? And so how can anyone say that, a parent, that, I mean, that's the thing, it's a catch-22. It's like no parent ever out there has given their kids any choices in the matter when they're a baby, even when they're a toddler. Because even kids today, when you give them a choice, they don't know what kind. You can say chocolate or vanilla. Okay, that's great. But when it comes to, should I go to the doctor or not go to the doctor? What do parents do? They don't give their kids the choice. They take them to the doctor. They don't say, hey, Johnny, Billy, Susie, do you want to go to the doctor or not? No. They're like, we're taking you to the doctor. Okay? So I don't want anyone to say that, that what you went through is illegal and that she never gave you a choice, and why are you saying it's okay? Are you trying to protect something? No. Because there's so many parents out there, again, who instill intolerance in their children, who instill so much negativity, intolerance, and narrow-mindedness that you could say, well, you just weaponize your child against the world by instilling that kind of politics, religion, or scientific dogma. So anyone that wants to have a judgment on how I look at what's going on, well, let's take a look at your world and how you raised your kid and what choices you did not give your kid. Okay. And so now we realize that, yeah, parenting is a lot more than what people think, and people have weaponized their children against society. And there are experiments out there that are done by sanctioned people so they could figure out how to develop humans, how to program humans. Is it right or wrong? Look out in the community, look at different people and how they interact with other people and what they think is good, bad, right, or wrong, and what people act upon, their vigilantism, the blame game, the intolerance of racism, the isms, and then you see why the system has to do what it's done or it's doing. Okay? And so my PMS, my pmdd probably saved my life because I didn't drug it out. I let my body release the demons. I didn't develop so many aggressive demons from trying to remedy my evolution. And so, I dealt with it and I suffered. And could I say that was my mother's fault? It's what it was. Everybody, again, has different cancer, disease, and chronic illnesses. And you could trace it back to the first therapy that was given to you. You could trace it back to whatever your parents had dealt with and never resolved, and pass that on to you. You can blame whoever the fuck you want, but it's not going to change the fact that you have the situation. What are you going to do with the situation? Are you going to add more, compound it with more demons, or are you going to find a way to release it and not destroy yourself any further? And so I dealt with it and I suffered, but the suffering saved my life because it could have gone in a very different direction. If I would have tried to end my suffering with the newest thing on the market, like Prozac at the time, I could have become something very aggressive. And so my advice to the world is, if you want to save yourself, get away from those who want to develop more demons within you, if it is all possible. Now you see the split in our society, because beauty, sex, love versus shame, religion, Jezebel accusations, and then the mixture of sex, religion, money used as a tool, which is why then you see the flyover states or the conservative people, mostly right-wing Christian type of thing, is always having issues with the liberal left wing, the more free in their sexuality, and the manufactured split between chastity and promiscuity, and then having children make it okay. Okay, so you could be all like promiscuous and be out there running the streets, and everyone's like, oh my God, look at this person. She's like a hoe, she's this, she's that. And then one day she has a kid, and now she's like, everyone's, oh gosh, now she's a saint. For instance, look at the thing with Paris Hilton. I'm using her as an example because of her programming in the 90s and 2000s. And people could say that, she was a hoe, or she was this, or she was that. And okay, yeah, she had she has a great body. She had a lot of boyfriends. She had a sex tape that was put out there. And now she has a child. Now everyone's like, oh, look, she's calmed down. She's a mother now. She's a saint. But before, she was a sinner. But the child made it okay. That's the absolution. That was programmed into our society, that you can be a hoe, you can be like, like the Disney princesses, right? They were first, they're young and they're innocent and they're cute. And then you see what happened with Miley Cyrus, even with Britney Spears. Then they turn into this sex bomb. They turn into this sexual thing that people are like, oh gosh, lusting after. And then over time, then they have a child. And then they become supposedly a saint. But then the programming of what they were when they were told to be a sex bomb and then being a child is being intermixed together. And then you're like, holy shit, we don't know what she is now. We don't know if she's a sinner or a saint. And that's the split in our society. That's what radicalizes people. That's the craziness of our society, is the fact that we have that split of sinner and saint. And so, then the mixture of the sex, religion, money used as a tool, which is why the South is always having issues with the liberal left wing, because the manufacturer split between chastity and promiscuity, and then having children make it okay. But what kind of children have you developed in the process? See, once you're a mom, now you are a saint, as if becoming a mom was not frowned upon as promiscuous. It was shameful to be sexual until a baby pops out. And then it's not shameful anymore. Now you're a saint, okay? Which is why the sex workers find God, chastity, after finally leaving the life. And it's not organic. That was programmed into the population. And of course, the sexual revolution of the 1960s and all the human experimentation of the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even before that in the 1900s. Because you saw old Hollywood, MK Ultra. You saw the Katharine Hepburns. You saw the men like what's his face? Oh gosh, there's Clint Eastwood, Clark Gable, that one with the cigarette out of his mouth. I forget his name, but that's okay. But you saw the old Hollywood, the split of the greasers and the socialites, the sock hops, the socialites, the educated, All right. So that's the human programming and what causes so many wars. But that was America and will continue to be until the system finally releases the demons. However, now sex without bearing kids is marketed as used as a weapon to drain the life out of both men, women, and non-binaries. Okay, so you see like in this Netflix series called Working Moms, and they're making fun of motherhood and working mothers, and also trying to deploy pharmaceuticals that causes men to be, to spill seeds, but seedless. They can get off and release demons, but it's not the seed to plant other stuff. They can release their proteins, like release themselves, but it's not going to inseminate somebody else. And that's kind of what's going on is that the more you spill the seeds and eggs, the less of you will exist. And so why do women get menopause, right? And they're aging out, releasing, aging out, and their body is deteriorating. Well, when your body deteriorates to such a point where it can't hold life in it, then it's not going to drop an egg to try to carry on the genetic line, because now you can't carry on the genetic line. Now, yeah, you can call that menopause. Now, what about in my world? I'm not dropping eggs. But I'm not aging out either. I'm not, I'm not losing my hair. I have a few gray hairs, but that's just the DNA conversion. But I'm not losing fat. I'm not highly sexual. I'm eating all food in the food supply whenever something comes through. And I have to release the demons. I blow my nose and cough and sneeze and release poop and all that. I'm doing that, but I'm also actively eating and feeding my body. So, but I don't have a reason to drop an egg. The last time I dropped an egg and ovulated and had a period was when my dog passed away, because I caught so many of her bugs trying to get her through that process to no avail, that those bacteria got into my system, caused a type of release process where it was under attack and the proteins fornicated and released an offspring and released an evolution that came into a form of an egg. I fell sick. I had the infection. Remember, I had the type of spinal meningitis. I had the stiff neck. I could barely walk and do anything. I mean, it wasn't as bad as it was prior when the frequencies changed in that summer of July, August, September, or July, August. But when she started deteriorating rapidly in February, and it was just no going back, I had so many of those microbes in my body that was fornicating and causing major infection. And that's when I dropped the egg. Once I got through that process, I haven't dropped an egg since then. I've gone through, yes, different frequency changes, and I felt the demons and I released them and all that, but none to such an extent where it caused me to drop an egg. Okay? And so, by the way, I have no eggs. I've had no eggs dropped since last February when my dog passed away. Am I the best copy? Evidently, Mother Nature seems to think so. And so I cough, I sneeze, and I blow my nose, and I release demons without ovulating. And I'm not too big, and I'm not too small or skinny. I have substance to me, okay? And I'm not trying to show my boobs to everyone. I'm not trying to be sexual all over Facebook. I'm not trying to get a man. I have a man, okay? And I'm sustaining him on some level, and he is sustaining me on some level, all right? So either you are the best copy of yourself, or you drop pixelated proteins of yourself to keep the genetic line going. And so that's where people have a choice. All right. And so our society is sinners become saints. What if you didn't have to be either? So the J world is about lessening those intense feelings so they don't run you and turn you into ammunition. See, the rest of the world is about bringing up intense feelings as an antidote against evolution, or an antidote too, against evolution, also known as pain. Which is why all the activism, because the intense feelings, people don't know where the feelings come from. And so what do? They funnel their energy, those intense feelings, into something, into blaming something, into promoting something, into destroying something. I mean, it's all based upon what your intention is. And so, which is why all the activism, because the intense feelings, people don't know where the feelings come from. Because beauty, love, and sex and hate are all about intense feelings, and they get exacerbated when people get triggered. Those are the demons running people, which is why therapies try to go in and cover them up with other intense feelings or drugs, or they surgically take out those feelings, like oncology, like everything, okay, that goes on in the surgical world. And so any new life is intense, but when you have so much life coming in all at once, people don't know how to handle those feelings. And so what do? They attack it. They attack it. So this is why the cannabis was weaponized against America and most of the first world, which is why Russia does not allow anyone coming in with pot, marijuana, tainting their population. I don't fucking blame Russia. I don't blame Putin for saying, no, you can't bring pot. I don't blame different countries out there. But why is Russia against the pot, and why is Thailand now loosening their hold and limitations on pot? Because guess what? They figured out that's how they can control the population and cause a depopulation to a third world. See, Russia is like, I don't say the communist bloc. They're not the communist bloc anymore. They're becoming pretty advanced. And they know pot will be the downfall. They know drugs will be the downfall of their society. So no wonder Russia's like, no fucking drugs here. And then why Thailand is bringing all the drugs. They have all the sex stuff going on, the sex workers. People go and have sex with anything and anything that they want. And why marijuana is now becoming one of the main things that are going on out there. No different than why California is run by pot and marijuana. Why eventually Ohio is going to be that way. Why eventually all of America is going to be overridden by the drugs, by the pot, by the marijuana, because that's the downfall of humans. And when they're addicted to such a level, they don't want to face their intense feelings. And that's how you get rid of people who don't want to deal with evolution, is you get them addicted. And Russia's like, no fucking way are you going to do that to us. And so that's why Brittany Griner was put in jail. And she became an example. You don't bring pot into Russia or any other country that says no fucking pot, no drugs. Most likely even Saudi Arabia. Okay? And so, by the way, you'll see aggressive beauty in some Northern European countries because remember, they don't have half as many frequencies and crime that we have here in the first world, like in America. And they are developing an influential presence to be used as a tool to guide the rest of their population, because they understand that beauty influences people. Some intelligence, but if you don't have beauty along with the intelligence, then people are going to try to grab onto your words. But if you don't have the look and have the armor and the costumes and the makeup and all of that, then what you're saying is not going to land in people who are looking for someone to flow and follow. Okay? And so, yeah, America has had the mark that they cornered the market in influential people, and with sex and love and drugs and obsession and exploiting children. And you see all over your Facebook, you see mothers exploiting their daughters. You see mothers exploiting their sons. Okay? You see so much stuff going on Facebook, and it's all in plain sight. The obsession with beauty and sex and showing your body to everyone has been around for a while, ever since the sexual revolution in the 1960s. And so you're seeing the children of people in the 1960s, 50s, 40s, whatever, are practicing the same thing. Gen X came out of that, and then the Gen X children are doing the same thing. If they have the body, they may not have the body because they were under so much drug experimentation, their body blew up. And so now they're trying to find a different way to angle their way into society. But that also has its own drawbacks. All right, so, I'm kind of glad that I came from a licensed household, because I don't have to play the victim card, because there's no victim card. It's just human programming. And I also came out of the J world. If I didn't have the J world and I discovered this, it wouldn't happen. The J world opened up the doors for me to discover all this shit, uncovered every single fucking memory I've ever had, every single one of them. If it wasn't for my own discovery, I would be I'd be still trying to figure out how to keep the demon under control. And some people's demons some people's demons got so out of control, like Jodi Arias's. And maybe she was allowed to see the slasher movies in the 1980s. I was thinking about that last night. What made Jodi Arias go so aggressive and stab her ex-boyfriend so many times and shoot him? Well, when you've been exposed to so much violence like the 1980s movies, and you've also had trauma-based programming of sexuality and beauty programmed into you, along with all of those death scenes of Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers, yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. Most likely, that's probably what happened, is that her mother didn't know how to shield her from the movies. And so with all that trauma-based programming, plus then watching those movies, and the obsession with getting married, obsession with boyfriends that she thought would give her the life that she wanted, that deserved. Yeah. Which is why my mother never showed me those movies back then. She shielded me from all of that violence. So I can't get mad at my mom. I can't. If she knew what the fuck she was doing, she's a licensed behavior modificationist. Fuck. There is no victimhood here. This is just human programming. But if you're not licensed and you're doing behavior modification on your child or anyone that you're taking care of, yeah, that is against the law. Just like recommending a cure to someone when you're not licensed, recommending a remedy to someone when you're not licensed. Those are the very particulars of the law. You don't practice medicine, behavior modification. You don't give somebody a cure for their remedies or practice surgery without a license. That's why we have order. It's called law and order in our society. You don't take away someone's pain without a license. And if you're not their doctor, you shouldn't be recommending shit to anyone. If you're not a behavior modificationist, you don't be recommending spanking people or doing corporal punishment or thinking up of ways to control a child. You go to a licensed therapist to do that if you haven't figured it out. And I'll tell you, people who have kids with issues, and because you parents have issues, well, it's not up to you to go and behavior modify your child. Now you have to bring that kid to a therapist to do that, or to a licensed professional, because the more aggressive you get on that child, the more you're going to weaponize them, develop rage. So what do parents do? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But now I get it. It's It's fucking awesome. Have a good day, everyone.